Dealing with light.
Yes, I can where I can share my screen.
Yeah. Oh, I literally forget to do that every single time. There you go.
I don't see the screen.
Okay. Probably should highlight people.
There we go. So, thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming in this evening. It's not always the easiest subject to talk about. But you know, hopefully there'll be some takeaways today where folks can, if you've never experienced it, hopefully you never will. But to kind of give you a better idea of what to expect and how to prepare for it and how to deal with it. So that being said, let's give a little bit of information here. You know, my name is Daniel Pelfrey. I've been in the IT business for almost 30 years. I started at a small mom and pop ISP. I was employee number 2 at customer number 0 to around 75,000 before we were acquired by a national ISP who was acquired by another national ISP. So I know a little bit about the what company. So it was ZoomNet to OneMain. In this area, you probably remember US Internet.
Yes.
US Internet, a lot of their network teams based here in Knoxville. So that's how I came to be here.
Okay, yeah, I was ICX Online Internet Design Group.
Okay. It's a very small world.
So again, if you could raise your voice just a little bit, there was something we haven't.
Sure.
Along with our microphone or something.
Sure. How's that sound? Does that sound better?
Maybe bring it closer to you.
Okay, how is that better for the everybody on remote? Better or worse, about the same?
Better.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. So basically, during this time, you know, along the way, we acquired many companies. I mean, I think ZoomNet alone probably acquired 15 companies during that time. And during that time, we, you know, it was basically buying subscriber base. In some cases, we would take their points of presence. I mean, wherever it made business sense, right? To figure out like, hey, do we, in many cases, staff were kept, but in cases where staff wasn't kept, this was kind of my first introduction to this. I mean, I'm just a kid, and at the time I was really young. I was still in college actually, and it was it always sucked, but the way that I saw my first introduction to the way that was handled, it was handled polite, professional. Everybody had plenty of notice. Hey, you know, we're sorry. You know, your job is going to be gone 3 months from now, right? Start looking. You know, give you a heads up. And by the way, if you stay on board until that time comes, we're going to give you some incentive, right? Stay on board. You're doing a great job. We really appreciate you. And sometimes there may actually still be, I mean, time comes around. Sometimes they might actually have another job if another position opened up. It all depended upon headcount. But as you know, as time grew on and I saw more and more things, you know, and we can talk about some of these details. So I've survived dozens of layoffs in my career, and I've been let go once, since, you know, commonly called reduction in force, a RIF. So sure.
Something I actually learned, this is kind of weird American defaultism. RIF is very much an American term.
Mhm.
I worked with a bunch of foreigners, and I had to explain RIF a lot very recently.
What term do they use? Just out
They just
curiosity.
straight say fired. They
Fired.
don't have the term laid off.
That's
That's
interesting.
specific to like Spain and Colombia as a whole, and also a little bit more global. So
How can you determine the difference between fired and let go, though, right?
They just know the word fired. Which
Okay.
is interesting to me.
It is.
But don't forget, on our job applications, often there is, have you ever been fired versus a negative versus, you know, if it ever asks, have you, RIF is not fired.
That's correct. It's not by choice.
Usually files with cause.
Yeah.
I've heard out of folks in Ireland being made redundant.
Yes, I've heard that
Yeah.
term many times.
I've heard that term. I've also heard too, voluntary RIF versus involuntary RIF.
I can go into that as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing.
it is. I actually did not hear that term until I came to the lab. But the voluntary and the involuntary, right? So I just, it was a different way of doing things, mind you, depending on, so, we can go into more details in that, but it all depends on the funding, right? It's, I mean, I try to see things from the business side and from the personal side. It's tough, it really is. I mean,
You just missed, Super Happy's joke.
oh, sorry,
Joke in chat, sorry.
sorry.
We in the room can't see your chat.
Thank God.
So anyways, some other disclaimers here. I cannot give legal advice. I am not a lawyer. I am not extremely well versed in the current state, local, or federal laws. I've not had any experience in layoffs in almost 14 years. So coincidentally, I've been at the lab for 14 years. So I apologize if this gives anybody any panic attacks, anxiety. This can be a very uncomfortable discussion for topics, because I mean, you think about it, it's your livelihood, it's your day-to-day, especially if you've been there for a while or you're attached to people, you really enjoy what you do. This makes it even worse, right? I mean, that's for me personally, even talking about it, I feel my eyelids twitching, right? I still do. It's been 17 years, 16 years, and I still just, so I want to talk about the ways of, the things of survivor's guilt and also being let go, right? And how to help and how to deal with both sides of that coin, because they both just suck really bad. So stress and anxiety, that the thought of losing a job, my gosh, it can hit you in either. I mean, you might just be, some people could be really calm. Some people, okay, I'll just go find another job. No big deal, right? Some people, regardless of how good they might have it, it still just stresses the crap out of people, right? I mean, you just can't help it. It's human nature, and it's part of that fight or flight instinct. And what's really bad about this is if you do not get that adrenaline out of your system, over time, that will cause all kinds of health issues. You're going to have, I mean, you'll put on weight, you'll sleep less, it's going to impact your immune system. It causes, and it can create a vicious cycle. You don't feel good, you won't get as much exercise, you're going to put on weight, rinse, repeat until, and it affects you physically, it affects you mentally. I'm going to talk a little bit about ways of mitigating that as well, because it's very much all hand in hand.
Yeah, that's real. I've seen facilities just
Mm-hmm.
damaged after layoff announcements.
Oh, yeah, morale goes through I mean, whenever layoffs happen, the first thing that's going to happen, people, okay, I'm getting that crap out of here. I'm not going to be here. No one wants to be the last person there, because and I've been there and done that too. It sucks. So let's talk about this. Hey, preparing for a rainy day. It's how can you prepare for this type of thing? Well, if you can save back 3 to 6 months, think about what your monthly expenses are, what you need. If you can, keep an eye on the financial situation of the company. It's just, if they're not profitable, it's almost guaranteed, you're going to have layoffs. Even if they are profitable, that could also mean, if they want to be more profitable, get rid of people, right? I mean, the only time I got let go, company was already profitable. They just wanted to be more profitable, right? So that's an unfortunate fact. The other thing to keep an eye on is, who are their top customers? What happens if one of those top customers leave? That's that can impact a company. Or if they're contract based, well, what happens if that contract runs out? What's the, you have to think about the risks. You can't always predict everything, but it's good to have, shall we say, situational awareness of what's going on.
Yeah, I would add, the industry trends as well.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
Bulk layoffs, 2000, 2008, going through it now.
Yep.
It's really just like the economic environment.
It is. And sometimes it creates that vicious cycle. Well, hey, we can just, even if you're profitable, we can cut some headcount, save some money, push a little more profitability. there was a great presentation, a while back on keeping your resume updated. Definitely keep your resume up to date. Network, find out, keep an eye, even if you're happy with your job, doesn't hurt. Find out who's hiring, what's going on, right? What roles are they looking for? It might be something out there that you might find better. You never know. But networking, you can't go wrong with that. Just to, find out what's going on. Find out if your company has policies on how do they deal with layoffs. Either they don't have policies, which could be bad, because if they do have to do something, that means they've never thought it through. And we'll talk about that in a later slide. I've seen that happen as well. But have they done layoffs in the past? How did they handle it? Did they, things to consider. Find out if you can use unemployment, what it pays and how long it lasts. Now, the last time I checked in Tennessee, depending on your income, the most that you could get from unemployment, I think, was $200 or $250 or $275 a week. And from what I've been told, I've never actually used it. From what I've been told, it's very, very difficult to get. You have to go through a bunch of hoops, paperwork, and I don't think there's any local offices that has to be done all online.
You can be approved.
Yeah, that's so
Like you have to apply like 10 jobs a week, stuff like that.
states will differ, and it can also, so you have federal, state, and then you have whatever local laws also impact labor. Some areas are a little more friendly towards the workers, some areas not so much. Growing up early on in my career, I kind of saw the best aspects of what to expect, the best ways of handling it, treating people with respect, dignity, giving them some kind of notice. But I've also seen the opposite side of that spectrum where, sorry, same day notice, right? Nothing, do not pass go, do not collect $200. Your benefits canceled that day, right? So
There's also like the federal WARN Act. but
You are correct.
happens bypass that.
Yep.
And it doesn't seem to be any repercussion.
So you are correct. The WARN Act, so
It depends.
not all industries are covered by the WARN Act, number one. I think there's a gray area if you're a government contractor or a state government. I think you're exempt. But outside of the exemptions, and I'm a little rusty on this, but I have seen companies skirt the WARN Act. I may be slightly off here, but I think if you let go more than 50 people, and if you let go more than 50 people, you have to at least give them a 90-day notice. So the way companies skirt this is they will let go 49 people every 91 days. So every 91 days, 49 more people gone.
The law has something in it that says you're not supposed to do that. The administration responsible for enforcing it basically has no.
Yeah, and personally, I've seen it done many, many times. So yeah, that's good things to think about. Just also be learning new skills that are in demand. Always have something that can help make you more marketable, something that you enjoy, something that is high demand, low supply, perfect timing, right? Ride that wave. Try to turn the bad thought into something more positive. So types of layoffs. I've seen everything from, oh, by the way, you show up and hey, there's a padlock on the door. You are out all of your benefits, and oh yeah, if you had sick leave or vacation time, you're now a creditor. Good, that's worst case scenario. Exactly. You are a creditor, and you probably will get pennies on the dollar, if anything at all. So some companies, they have no plan, and it's pure chaos. They'll realize they might let people go, and they may. So let me give you an example of this. Later on in my career, I saw where. Sure.
Oh, yeah. So we have a question.
Sure.
Right? So how does, and I think it's relevant to this, right? How does one square a company laying off people because they hire too fast versus being asked to do more with less?
Say that first part again.
The question is, how does one square a company laying people off because they hire too fast versus being asked to do more with less?
Well, that's
Maybe that's just more of a topic for discussion than.
yeah, that's a,
Addressing you as the expert on the matter, right? So,
Kind of, actually, intervene.
sure, absolutely.
So one thing to your previous slide of like what to look out for, figure out who owns the company.
Yeah.
Whether or not you're public,
Mhm.
VC backed, or private.
That's a very good point.
That all three of those operate very differently.
They do, absolutely. Very different laws, very different things govern, I mean, absolutely.
Okay. I used to work for a VC company and 2 to 3 times a year, we saw all our sales stack rotate.
And a private company, there's no law against running your company into the ground. I mean, same thing for public companies too, really.
No, I was gonna say the original question.
Yeah, I mean, doing more with less is, you know,
That's what,
that's money.
yeah,
That's what drives all this.
yeah,
You also get caught up in the thing of, well, you feel like you need to get your job done. I personally, for better or for worse, one people up, I'm not gonna work 80 hours a week to cover the team just getting cut.
Yeah.
Like, that's a company problem. That's not necessarily the problem.
you're absolutely right. You shouldn't, if you become Atlas, you will burn yourself out so fast that, you know, you may be delaying the inevitable, right? So yeah, that type of question, you know, it's I mean, there's the business aspect and there's the personal aspect and there's the ethical aspect, right? I mean, you know, you have to look if it was the company was start hurting for money, could they have not shifted funds or did something else? I mean, I've seen some company presidents take $1 and pay, right, to keep staff on board. I've seen, you know, people, you know, or people who were, you know, I don't want to go into, you know, classism versus, but the reality is sometimes, well, I've seen a company where they let go 90% of the staff and then hired on 20 people who made it the same amount of those 800 people who were just let go. How do you justify that, right? I mean, there's no law against running your own company. It's a balancing act. And I get it that places may be, you know, hard times there. I mean, it's just, you know, that's a fact. I mean, I've offered, you know, I mean, so I've seen some people say, hey, you know, I'll take a reduced cut and pay, let me stay on, right? I mean, I've seen people try to negotiate.
There's been one really famous example of that. It was the company out of Seattle, the payments company, you know, Gravity. Yeah, Gravity Payments. So they did the whole minimum 75, but when COVID hit, everyone there took a reduced pay cut. And that's actually just an outlier case, 100%, but they actually ended up making more at the end.
But how many, so they did that with no layoffs, right? I mean, that type of concept is very interesting, and I wish we heard more stories about that type of thing. Because I really think that the system as it is really designed that it can be overwhelming, and some people just fall through the cracks. I mean, you can go out there on the street and you can kind of see some of the people who have, you know, for a variety of reasons, right? I mean, but I've seen some places lay off people, and because they had no plan, they didn't disable their accounts. I saw a guy who got laid off, went home, logged in, and was finishing work that he was supposed, but rather than during the downtime window, rebooted a bunch of routers that I wanted to finish this code upgrade. Where it's like, yeah, you know, it's just that type of thing. They could have done a lot more harm, right? I mean, think about that. It's like,
Well, I like Twitter that laid off people and they realized, oh, you're critical to our business functionality. Would you please come back?
yeah. It's like,
Here's my consulting.
yeah. Yeah, that's there. So when you do this, and especially in really bad manners, how can you build trust, right? How can you build how can you have any expectation of loyalty? I mean, to me, that means something. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm old fashioned.
This is a business relationship. It's working for them, it's working for you, and it stops working for one of the partners.
Yep.
It's to everybody just put on the big boy pants and go on.
Yeah. No,
And
you're-
when your employer calls you family,
Mhm.
you should realize how your family usually treats you around Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Or, you know, I get to go to your condo in Florida.
Yeah, knives out, right?
When do I fly in a private jet?
But I've seen some places, you know, same day firing, no notice. I actually saw one guy, I kid you not, the guy was in the hospital, had just had a heart attack and was let go while he was in the, got the phone call being, oh, by the way, your benefits are being canceled right now.
You can't let us like the health reviews.
You know, I just,
Yeah.
I don't know, right? That's just, yeah.
Is that just a question of bad timing?
Very bad timing, very bad timing.
Yeah.
The most recent one I've personally seen is in a meeting and your laptop just gets cut right then and there. And the managers weren't aware of
Yeah.
it.
I've also seen places where you'll be working and a group of HR people will just swarm this person. Step away from your computer, don't touch anything. All your stuff will be in a box. Come pick it up next week.
We had invites where you were the only person on the meeting.
Hmm,
That's when you update your resume, you know that.
yeah,
But you know, like there, since late last year, I mean, there've been almost 400,000, you know, tech industry layoffs. Not all technical people, but tech industry layoffs. I mean, a lot of times it's like you're on the wrong side of the Excel column, you know?
Yeah.
It's nothing personal.
That's why we're in IT, so we can change.
You see, I might
Yeah.
have padded my name here a little bit.
Well, I'd like to add some optimism. I've been subject to these business cycle things on numerous occasions over a 35-year career.
Mhm.
And in absolutely every circumstance, that my bounce was into something that paid significantly more than wherever I was plateaued on that.
you were very fortunate.
Well,
That doesn't work out for everybody like that.
Well,
Sometimes it's a blessing in disguise.
yeah.
Because sometimes if there is, I mean, there is the blessing in disguise, but sometimes, especially if you're in a downturn where everything else is going on, it suddenly becomes harder. You know, I mean, like me, when I got cut, I had to take a cut and pay, start over again, right? You know, it's
But I mean, the general growth of this
Yeah.
industry is.
oh, yeah,
Higher
absolutely,
expertise, higher skills, higher values.
absolutely.
The general trend of this business is that we are increasingly valuable.
Depends on the company, right? I mean, yeah,
This is cool.
yeah.
In general, depending on skill set, yeah.
Yeah. You know, people that show up to system administrator meetings.
I got a job just for showing philosophy.
I hired, I think, 2 people out of here.
Well, nice.
I was headhunted for my first position at the lab by someone here.
Slide.
I believe you did mention networking.
Yes, so.
Yeah.
So on to the next slide, survivor's guilt. What really sucks is you come in there and you see your friends, the people you used to talk with, work with every day. And best advice I can give. Now, let's go to a positive aspect here. Stay focused. You got a job to do, right? I mean, you don't want to just go into the depression. Stay focused, do your job. Try to raise morale. I mean, every time I saw that, I would bring in comfort food, brownies and ice cream, right? I mean, not always when I've brought in brownies and ice cream. Chris, you know this. I brought it, but I wasn't feeling bad that day, right? I was trying to have a good reason to use brownies and ice cream, right? So, it's good to say, I'm sorry, you know, hey, I'm sorry, you know, especially it's heartfelt, right? These are people that you know the names of, you know, their spouses, their kids, their pets. You know a lot about them. These are your friends and coworkers, people you've known, you know, you may have carpooled with them. You may have, you know, done things after work. It really sucks when you come in, you don't see them there anymore, right? I mean, that is, but the best thing that you can do to help them, you know, write a recommendation, write a recommendation, go out and help them network. Word of mouth, right? I mean, look at all what you all just mentioned, like, hey, I know someone who knew someone. And if you don't know anybody, to go ask a few people on their behalf to help them out, because word of mouth can go a long way in helping someone spring back on their feet to hopefully find something better, right? To find something, it doesn't always have to be the downward spiral. Find that next step up.
Sure. I worked for 20 years for Scripps Networks, Discovery, whatever, right? So after Discovery bought them, like there were a lot of layoffs, right?
Yeah.
So I had the Word doc, like, here's every local employer I know with here's the former Scripps people working there. So I had 20 places and, some old people, some new people, but like, here's all the list of contacts, and just every time somebody got laid off, I'd send them that document. Here you go, man. Let's start.
I will say there's also a local talent market thing too. You sort of have to be, I mean, many years I lived and worked in around Lexington, Kentucky, and all the same population of people worked at the university, worked at Lexmark, worked at IBM. When they would get fired at one thing, they would go to the other. I mean, and this is, whenever the university would always have 3 slots, and well, the pay was less, but the benefits were a lot. It was always just the same sort of tide pool of talent.
Yeah, there's roughly 15 to 25-ish places here in this region that's kind of like that. I mean, between TVA, ORNL, Y12, SAIC, the various hospitals, University of Tennessee, Pilot. There's all kinds of really good companies in this area. Clayton Homes, sure.
So we have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Locked up here. Would you join a company that had recently laid off people in your role?
Oh, goodness. I'm gun shy. Me personally, I wouldn't unless I had to. If I had to, and I couldn't find anything else better at the time, maybe. I guess there is some context there, especially if the company was appealing in their mission or in what they did. That would kind of entice me a little more.
Context. Man.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I mean,
How did they handle the layoffs? If they did it in a really bad manner, absolutely not. If they did it in
great severances, and
Yeah.
it was just like a big flying left, that's one thing.
Yeah,
versus-
exactly.
I was praying for a layoff at Scripps, praying for it.
You wanted severance.
One of the severance, I've been there 20 years, man.
So if you're lost-
It would have been like a year's salary for
Yeah.
free.
Oh, yeah. Those days, unfortunately, they're fewer and far between.
But would I take a job? And of course, all that's conditional, right? But it's expensive for a company to bring somebody on board. Like they're not going to bring you on and then willing to turn around and lay you off, right?
Actually, I'd be more skeptical of the workload on that job. than
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
anything. That'd be my big concern.
I was gonna say too, maybe Brad can outline some of the hiring costs.
It's at least 20% of someone's yearly salary.
I guess the other question is,
That's minimum.
that's something you would reasonably ask an interview, and how they answer that, whether they even want to talk to you after you've asked it.
So not hiring, what happened to the guy that had it before me?
Oh, yeah.
Now, that's a fair question to ask. I mean,
Yeah.
when you're filling this role, is it a backfill or a new position? And if it was a backfill, what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I'm kind of skeptical about those sorts of questions, right? Because, like a lot of times, Scripps was a great company to work for, but they would have a reorg. There would always be a few people that, that position wasn't needed anymore, right? And then maybe there were other positions that would open up. So was it a layoff? You can kind of play games with reality there.
You can.
One thing too, to add to survivor's guilt, when reaching out to the person, be cautious as well. Like you can be too early, you can be too late, but a lot of times that was what I found is don't ask questions. Neither party wants to know at the end of the day.
The person that's let off.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also don't say anything because those people might be angry,
Yes.
and what you say can trigger a lawsuit, and you'll be a witness, and you might be on property.
And we'll talk a little more about the emotional roller coaster ride there as well. And that's a very good point about, approaching it gently. I mean, if they want to talk about it, definitely. At least to extend the olive branch. Hey, if there's anything to help you, let me know, right? I mean, that's what.
That's just industry professionalism and being kind human.
So it's a,
My safe answer is contact me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Making a business commitment, I'm not making a.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah. So some of the other aspects of Survivor's Guild is keeping the company afloat. You may find that you may have inherited more duties than what you originally did in scope. There was one company that I was at, I think I was the 45th person there. And when I left, it was the last 4 of us. I basically took on the roles of 5 or 6 other people. So it wasn't that bad, but at the same time, it's like, one can only be Atlas for so long. And you can't, that's not sustainable.
And you talk to your manager, prioritize the work,
Yep.
go down the list until, you're done working and then quit.
Yep.
You can't take, 8 hours of work onto one person.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely.
Says 40 hours, on average, work about 40 hours.
Yes. Yeah, then there was the,
It's more than others, but
and no matter what, even if you're pushing 50, well, you're not ever gonna be able to make 130. So why? Why take ownership of the training?
there's only so much you should do. You should definitely recognize that and know your limits. That's the,
And this actually happened to me at early. The contract reorg came along, there, basically, there were 2 sysadmins left in the entire enterprise. Just as that whole transition was coming, I got interviewed with Bridges. Yeah, bye, I'm not gonna be the last right off.
Yeah.
Be the penultimate right off.
yeah, when I was one of the last 4, it took my boss basically saying, any loyalty you have to me for bringing you on here, let it go. Find the first job you can, get the heck out of here. So any debt you had, consider it paid. And I was like, message received. So otherwise I would have probably followed him to the gates of hell, because we tried. We really did. That also can lead to the unfortunate tasks of finding passwords, changing passwords, locking accounts, right? I mean, sometimes.
So I take passwords.
Yeah, or you find out, hey, what's the password to these? So and so that knew that. Well, yeah, I've had to go in and what was that Linux distro where you could basically
Economics.
yeah. So go in, and there were some people who actually saved all their passwords in the browser. So you just go in and find the password. So I mean, luckily in cases like that, it's fairly easy. But
You probably need to backtrack and follow.
yeah,
Yeah, but not sitting at tools like that.
you can never rewrite topics just.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never did that working.
Full disk encryption, you just do it in a live CD and grab the files.
Oh, yeah.
I used to have those functions.
I used to have a floppy with a little distro. I used to check HTTP.
So kind of an interesting too, as far as rotating passwords. Sometimes it's not the password, it's literally the person on the account. I know I've been on the receiving end of that, and I've also been on the calling end of, hey, person, I need you to answer your phone to authorize this. I know you haven't worked for this company in 5 years now.
Third-party vendors and stuff.
But also too, not entirely relevant to this, but sometimes just getting someone off the vendor is a lot easier than adding them. You can say, yeah, that person no longer works here. You don't even have to involve HR. They're like, oh, that's great.
There's a training company that calls me like every 6-9 months. I don't work at scripts anymore, man. Take me off your list.
wow.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I just think FedEx keeps calling me for an old account of mine, and I just goes to voicemail. I don't really care at this point. But I know like Rackspace especially, they're really very tight on like, you must answer as this person, or you must know the whole question, or whatever. But other companies are like, oh yeah, just here, have fun. You say you're you, we trust you.
Yeah, on the flip side, I've seen some companies also where companies change hands. There was a telco, I can't remember the name of the company, it's Quest Communications. Someone had ordered a circuit, then left the company. So they had, and this is back when the said circuit was around $45,000 a month. Well, we refused. It's like, I don't know who ordered this. This should not have been placed. We do not accept it. Do not bill us. Do not, take this, get rid of this. So they sent it to our parent company. They paid it. They paid $700,000 or $800,000 bill blindly, just paid it. And it's like, I went to them, it's like, do you realize, I don't know if they ever got the money back, but it was, hopefully they did. But yeah, it's be on the lookout for bad actors. And I've seen some companies say, hey, if you stay on board, we're going to get through this uncertain time. They give you a retention bonus, right? I mean, not just pizza, give you some actual pay. So I've seen companies take good care of their people.
By the way, Daniel, I don't know where you are in the deck,
Yep.
15-ish.
Yeah, about three quarters of the way.
Okay.
So yeah, so decreasing the likelihood. Enjoy your job. Have fun. Be at the office. Be willing to relocate. Have a presence, right? Let people know. If you're out of sight, you're out of mind. People. Have a decent attendance record. Show quality work. If you have a good reputation, it's gonna, you put the odds a little bit in your favor. Diverse skill sets. Getting laid off. So, the worst thing, I mean, it sucks. You got to remind yourself to breathe, create some checklists. And we're going to go into these checklists on a later slide, but you come up with a plan of how are you going to get through this, right? Because it's an emotional roller coaster ride. You're going to have all this adrenaline, all this stress, but there's details that you need to be thinking about. And you also need to find that silver lining, find things to be grateful for. I mean, you could be facing that situation where you're out your vacation, you're out everything, right? Your business. I mean, you might find out that, hey, I'm going to be employed for the next 3 months. You have to find don't be bitter, right? Find things to and immediately kick in that support network, finding people who know someone who knows something. Sometimes you can do everything right and you still can't avoid it. I mean, it could be geography. They may say, hey, we're getting rid of all the remote workers, or we're getting rid of this particular office. It happens, right? You can only do so much.
Yeah. In my experience, it's rarely personal.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But the whole thing of, I mean, it's almost like dealing with the death in a family. I mean, you're going to go through the denial, the anger, the bargaining, the depression, the acceptance. It's normal to feel this way. I mean, it sucks. This is where you really have to reach out to your support network, and be willing to have, if someone extends that olive branch to, listen to them, help get it out of your system. Checklists are your, they can really, if you're stressed and you're not thinking about all the details, if you have a list, you can be thinking about like, hey, when do my benefits end? Are they extending in a severance package? What are the details of that? When do I have to turn in my laptop? Documentation. When is the last day of employment? Those are the types of things. Sometimes some companies will help employees with all these details and provide a checklist. But sometimes it wouldn't hurt to be thinking about, if this were to happen, what would you need, right? If you've seen other people let go, what would you need? It's kind of like, if your house is burning down and you only had 30 seconds or 15 seconds to grab something on the way out, what would you grab? But if you're stressed, you may not be thinking about all this. You're thinking, you want to, what can you do to make this as least stressful as possible?
I think the bash script of get fired has got a new meaning.
Criteria for being let go. I've seen highest paid people. I've seen lowest in seniority, highest in seniority. Those who do not get along well with others. Some people underperforming. Geography, right? Sometimes there's just no rhyme or reason. I mean, it does happen, and it just absolutely sucks. But
I mean, I think especially a bigger company, you know, they just do it by, you know, department, they do it
Can be.
by, you know,
Absolutely.
by money. I need this column over here.
Yep.
Have a higher number down here.
So when you bounce back, the best advice I can give, you don't want to sit home and play video games all day. I know it's tempting, right? Especially Factorio. Like, God, I love that game. You have to spend some time, work on your resume, apply for some positions, customize the resume for positions that you're interested in, network. You know, give yourself a little bit of reward for doing that, but you also want to think about the physical aspect. When I was talking about the stress and the adrenaline, get that out of your system. Go for a hike, go for a walk, stay physically active, and try to get yourself. Because if you start getting into a depression, you really need to help. You need to get yourself out of it as quickly as you can.
And don't wait until you're laid off to
Yeah.
network. Start networking now.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Always being there.
That's right.
And put a positive spin on why you left the previous place. I mean, you don't want to say, well, I was fired, you know, it's like, I mean, you know, it's like, hey,
Management and I didn't see eye to eye.
what's that?
It's like, management and I didn't see eye to eye.
No, that's fair. It's a fair, you know, but you know, be honesty, but you know, don't, you know, some people could be very bitter, and how you handle that could be how they judge you. It's like, well, if this person is really jaded, I'm not sure I want them on here, right?
Don't have now to produce it.
Exactly.
Never burn any bridges.
Yeah.
Never.
I've actually seen a lawsuit because of that, where they went on Glassdoor. And then they did it semi-respectfully. They weren't using profanity or being abusive. They called out all of the issues they had with the former employer, and then they got a lawsuit.
That's protected speech though.
It is, but they have to.
Well, it is, but
You have to go deal with
Yeah,
that.
you have to go deal with
Charge, you can't beat the bribe.
Right.
Interesting.
But
You're innocent until proven.
I would add, right? Future employers will look at that and they will think, you know, what's this guy gonna say about me?
Mhm.
Secondly, like I have seen, you know, unprofessional behavior from somebody who's leaving the company, right?
Yeah.
And then I've been around the block when they're applying for another job, you know, and everybody's like, you know what this guy did, right? And then he doesn't get hired, and nobody ever tells, nobody goes and tells him why he didn't get the job.
Just pass
Yeah.
it to the job.
I mean, you know, we talk about the 400,000 people being laid off in IT. I think, you know, the 6 degrees of separation really is true. I know so many people in California that just by that, like 2 degrees from being like in the computer science department at UT, which
Yes.
means a lot of system administrators.
A lot of people, Facebook and.
Yeah, everybody knows the
Google.
Doug group,
Meanwhile,
Mike
there's
Julian
no
has found this group.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. The CTO.
Oh, yeah, did we get an April Fool song this year?
Oh, I didn't.
So someone added to all of, from the, gallery here, someone added, always be networking, someone said always be applying to.
You never know until you try.
Okay,
I'm talking to a recruiter next week.
Huh.
I already told them that I am very unlikely to take this job, but I'll talk, you know,
It hurts to make the connection.
Yeah.
I just, I'll, you know, I'm letting you know upfront.
That's
I'm
honest.
very unlikely to take this job.
now,
Willing
if
to
you
talk.
want to update your resume, make hits LinkedIn. 1,000,001 people get notified. They're all evil, but
They're not all evil.
And maybe put a prompt injection somewhere in your LinkedIn bio.
Just quasi mini.
There's also nothing wrong with turning on either I'm secretly looking for work or just straight up, hey, someone please hire me.
Yeah,
I have,
open the network.
I have that middle tier turned on. I've had it on. for
Yeah, show it
years.
to recruiters and everything.
Yeah.
That's always on.
I'm willing to talk. I'll listen.
I'll hear you out.
Just, you know, find the right place, talk to people who've worked there, find out what their culture and work-life balance is. Don't jump out of the frying pan into the fire. Best advice I can give right there. Don't, you know, look. I don't want to sound too cliche-ish, but definitely look before you leap. Some of the reviews on Glassdoor, kind of try to take those with a grain of salt.
It's like Amazon reviews.
That's anything.
You can get
Yeah, you
loaded
really
with-
love it or you hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because no one goes to write a review for a perfectly normal job.
Like who rates something 3 stars, right? No one.
Yeah.
It's either 5 or 1, right? I mean,
Yeah,
there's
3
no,
star, what rates 3 stars and enough to actually write the review.
$10 gift card, I can give you 3 or 5 or 1.
$15.
It won't be a 2 or a 4.
so summary, be ready to ride the storm, be ready to help others, stay positive. I mean, it's not all doom and gloom. Sometimes you might get a little bit of a setback, but you know what? I mean, I took a bit of a setback, but I'm way better in a much better environment, much better headspace. And in places I would have never imagined. So, stay positive. Don't let the fear and worry crush you. I'm guilty of that. I mean, I prepare for a rainy day and enough is never enough, right? I mean, but at the end, I hope this has been helpful, folks. Hopefully you never have to use this, but Murphy's Law, have it, you won't need it.
I want to add one final closing point.
Sure.
I was in a situation myself, very similar to this. And one thing that I found that was personally helpful for me, so I had a job, I could start literally any day. I said, screw it. I found out when was the last day that I could be unemployed till I would have benefits issues. And I just took a mental, personal break, literally had no one in the world to report to. And it's one of the top 2 events of my life.
I did a similar thing when I left IBM. I was kind of good at IBM. And my wife said, what are we gonna do? I said, we're going to travel.
Mhm.
And she said, what? I said, I've got my severance package, healthcare is covered for the next few months. The kids are out of school for the summer.
Make it.
We spent 6 weeks.
Enjoy it.
And the kids, we knew the kids were late
Yeah.
middle school, middle school, elementary school, family. I said, in 2 years, the kids will be in high school. We won't, they'll be busy in the summer. We won't have to. But this is our last chance to have an extended family vacation. And we spent 6 weeks just driving out west, and all the way to British Columbia.
And you're going to come back refreshed, right? That's a mini sabbatical.
Yeah.
And that's a really good idea to do between. I mean, a lot of people, they go from job to job and they never take any time off in between. This is an opportunity. Turn this into a positive way where you can come back recharged and actually not burn out, not tired, not stressed.
The kids
Yeah.
go back to school in a week and, we were just, okay. Now all of our summer vacations are over.
The real world hit and it kind of sucked.
Well, that's,
But you're refreshed.
Yeah.
right? Every time I've tried to plan what he's done, it's gotten screwed up.
That's why you don't plan it.
Well, exactly, that's what's gonna be my next point, is don't try to plan something like this, just hope
Do
that
it.
you get the opportunity that's there, seize it.
the other things I would add is, don't internalize it. It's not your failure.
That's hard to do. It's very hard to do.
You did, this is a business decision that affected you. It did not, it's not your fault. One of the things I really had an issue with was, especially from the Lexington, Kentucky area, working for IBM is actually a very prestigious job. Lexington has a long history with IBM. If you tell people you work at IBM, people will follow you. And so that little piece of prestige was, it was bullshit in a way, but it was somewhere inside of me. I was like, I wouldn't do this for work, but I did, maybe it's vanity or whatever, but it's like, I miss that little response.
Oh, yeah.
Work right there. Yeah. And I get that, that's one of the things I like about working in the lab. That's what we're doing in the lab. Oh,
It's the affectionately called the country club, right?
The club for your country.
I think that's what I really like.
Yeah,
I get that little goose again.
we don't have a swimming pool and we don't have a golf course, so I can't,
We have a pool, but it's just that river where you can't swim.
Yeah, you come out glowing, right? That's all over it.
Something about frogs.
Yes,
Yes.
extra appendages, all there.
Just don't internalize.
Well, maybe when
You're
the year or so of COVID side down a bit more, they'll start doing tours games.
One thing for me, and this is kind of my personal thing, I've never been like a massive fan of people spamming their contact information whether it's like voluntarily for a job termination. I kind of under the personal belief of like the people that actually you care about and like they care about you, they're the ones that have it and actually keep touch. But necessarily sending to especially distribution list, hey, my name is Wesley, here's my email and my phone number, bye.
I see both sides of that. Sometimes you may not have time to actually, there's some
So
people.
many
you may-
distribution lists allow external.
Oh, okay,
access.
gotcha. Yeah, if you had that, then yeah, you can always reach out, but yeah,
Or
that's,
Usually doesn't like you.
yeah.
Well,
that's-
I'm just saying whether or not to, like, it's your last 2 weeks
Yeah.
or whatever. Now, to a select group of people that you actually consider your friends at work, 100%, but I've
Yeah.
seen the masked ones. And I have personal issues with that.
I can see that. I would-
You know, if it was people, I wouldn't necessarily say friends, but if it was people I've worked.
I mean, for me, I still have several chat groups, of people that are legit friends from past employers.
I encourage people to go to the Knox Dev Slack. That's kind of where I talk to people. And as a admin of the Knox Dev Slack, like 95% of the messages sent are private. So I know I'm not the only person doing it. It's like that central place, like if you're not in the same company as someone, you can get on there and. You know,
You're
chat back and
25% of those
forth.
messages.
Interesting.
Still at least official like most of our chat.
100%.
So
Yes.
I got
I know there have been a few.
Two things.
Already this week.
be always aware of who is leaving.
Mhm.
Because there is always at the organization going to be people who know well before you do that there are going to be layoffs.
Yep.
And please forgive me, I do rag on MBAs, you know, I know a lot of them. My policy is if 2 MBAs leave really in short order, might want to polish that resume.
Yeah.
Then there was
Yeah.
a second thing, well, don't keep files from your work. Return them, destroy them, don't think, oh, I have some great code, I'm gonna copy it. No,
Unfortunately, I still find printouts of stuff from previous companies that I thought I had destroyed. And it's like, where do these things come from?
I know, so what you do is you get your work self to pick it up from your personal self under the AGPL,
Under the what?
under the Affero GPL.
it's like the BSD license, but worse.
It's the one that says if you provide a service with it, you have to open source it.
Yeah.
So any other questions? It's hopefully this has been helpful for folks.
Yeah, thank you.
That's making me worried.
Sorry, that's yeah.
We should-
I'm craving
worry.
brown. I'm craving
You should be
brownies.
prepared. Right, well, you should be cut because you were like within 5 seconds of target time.
So, and I didn't go over, so, yeah.
One other job thing that is now seen coming up, if you have a GitHub account, you can make any kind of contribution whatsoever to an open source project, even if it's your own, you publish some crappy source code. That is now on a checklist from many people is, have they contributed to an open source project? I've been at now 2 different places that has been a checklist item for hiring.
There is something to note that if you work at YouTube, you tell you,
I've heard that you can, but there's a lot of paper.
there's a whole
paperwork to
release process. I had to go through it for my fork of Clipper.
do. Mhm.
And now my fork of Clipper is listed in some DOE code repository.
You're talking about the database, the Clipper database, or is it something else?
Now, Clipper is a firmware for 3D printers.
Okay.
So nothing to do with your job per se, but
Nothing
something
to
you're
do
doing,
with my
that this is
job
what
at
you're
all.
doing for, yeah.
Oh, that was another thing. If you start seeing rules coming down about people, weird requirements that you would never think people would be. People must be at their job, at their desk between 8 and 5 PM, things you think were normal, but a lot of policy rules being explained about things that you were like, oh, they're just getting ready to set up people to risk
Lowercase.
Yeah,
based because they didn't dot that I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're setting up potentially potential for constructive.
Yeah.
which can lead
That
to.
actually brings up a point from the most recent one that I saw, where there was a lot of information lacking from accounts.
Oh.
Mm.
what do you
Yeah.
think about that?
GitHub accounts for missing names.
Huh.
So GitHub is really weird. So like, I've always kind of been under the thing of, oh, hey, I have an account per employer for this website. And in your not LastPass folder, you end up with 10 GitHub accounts. Turns out GitHub to push a policy is used for your personal account. And I thought that was kind of an absurd policy when I was doing SSO and SAML, and I finally figured out what their backend is like. And I'm like, that's why they say use your personal account. That makes sense. Just someone will say, Wesley Kirkland, insert employer initials here.
Interesting.
And I'll add one other thing, no, not pandering to tech systems. The contracting world is, they're always looking, they're always, reach out. If you're in a pinch. People like tech systems, yeah, I mean.
IT unemployment still 2%, even with the layoffs, but there is always another opportunity.
Is that region or national?
National. Still 10%.
Well, that's actually, a benefit of Tennessee, even though people have remote work, it's harder than hell to get someone to be on site in Tennessee for some other reason. It's like, well, why are we moving out the middle of nowhere? It's like, it's not the middle of nowhere. Sure, it's not avocado toast bar.
I mean. Second one,
Like,
the first one.
Okay.
All right, well, we'll wrap it up.
And a brief reminder that discussing working conditions, including potentially upcoming layoffs and any other actions that management may be planning, is protected speech.
Does anyone on the remote call have questions?
Yeah.
Except for Caleb.
Not so much a question. I just wanted to say thank you guys for putting this online and making it available, and to Wesley for bringing it to my attention.
Which is legal.
Nice to see you,
But-
Marty.
There's a whole
Yeah.
thing about that because that happens so
Yeah.
much. It's not even funny.
So Ben, I've got a
The whole
suggestion for next month.
Yeah.
Retention,
Retention.
yes. So we've had layoffs. Well, how do we can kind of reverse and say, what can be done to retain? What type of things can we do to encourage our employers to retain people and make working conditions better?
And you just told. Or like, no, you suggested you. That's pretty high.
One slide, with a dollar sign on.
Over here.
Everybody, round of applause for our speakers.
Yay,
Was this recording?
thank you.
Yeah, it's still recording. You're good. Yeah,
Where's the,
that's what I'm saying.
yeah,
Mike.
where's
I love MBAs.